Chapter 45-46. Time passes slowly. The old man in red robes with sword unparalleled began to become familiar with the void. Luo Ming, there are void cracks everywhere in the void space, and the magnetic field is chaotic. Our false consciousness often cannot be spread out completely, or it will convey some wrong information. Therefore, we need to measure by inch by foot and be familiar with the terrain. The old man in the red robe walked forward and said patiently. Jian Wushuang followed, not talking, but constantly looking at the void. As the sentence says, the paper is finally shallow. Although Jian Wushuang has a detailed map of the void forbidden area drawn by the Red Whale Gang, and is already familiar with it, it is still a little different from his own observation. As he walked, Jian Wushuang quietly laid the Fengtian's Hen banner. A few hours later, void forbidden land had already traveled to most. And Feng Tianqi in the sword has no hands, and there is not much left. The entire void forbidden area is almost under his control. At this moment, the old man in the red robe stepped. Luo Ming, if you want to come to this catastrophe battle, you only know about it, but I don't know the details. Today I will tell you about this catastrophe battle carefully. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes upon hearing the words, and to be honest, he didn't know much about the battle of catastrophe. He believes that the virtual universe is so continually moving forward and attacking the divine universe at the expense of casualties. In addition to the ambition of the virtual god, there must be important reasons that he does not know. Come on, don't sell. Jian Wushuang urged on his mouth, in line with Luo Ming's personality label. Luo Ming, do you know the existence of Qi Yun? The old man in red robe looked back and smiled at Jian Wushuang. Luck. Jian Wushuang heard the word for a moment, and he really heard it for the first time. Yes, luck. The old man in red robe nodded his head and replied, Luo Ming, you are still four-marked, and you don't have a deep understanding of luck. After you reach the level of 5 marks, you will find the importance of luck. After a pause, the old man in the red robe continued, in the universe, Wuchen-level virtual respect is not uncommon. In general, as long as there is no death in the middle after breaking through the mark, after a long baptism, as long as the talent is not too weak, you can reach the 5-mark virtual status respect. However, the 5-marked virtual respect and the 6-marked virtual respect seem to be just a small realm, but the actual situation is completely different, and it is not an exaggeration to say that the nature of the gods. From ancient times to the present, our virtual universe does not know how many 5-mark virtual honors have been accumulated, but there are very few 6-mark virtual honors. If you want to break through the 6-mark virtual honor, you not only need top talent, understanding, but also the most critical factor, and that is luck. Every 6-marked vanity is said to be the son of heaven, and their own luck has been linked to this universe. Therefore, almost no one has ever been able to defeat the 6-marked virtual lords without entering the 6-marked virtual lord. The old man in the red robe flashed his eyes, and then sighed with a sigh of relief. The old man has been immersed in tens of thousands of virtual periods in the 5-mark virtual respect. According to the years of practice, many 6-mark virtual honors have to rank behind the old man. But as he practiced along the way, the masters always acted as teachers. The old man has practiced for so long, but he is not as good as them. He is really ashamed. Jian Wushuang heard the word and did not answer, but continued to think about the word fortune that the old man in the red robe just said. Not only does the 5-mark virtual honor of the virtual universe break through the 6-mark difficulty, in the divine universe, the half-step invincible supreme and the invincible supreme seem to be only 2 words apart, but they are also very different. There are not many top-level supremes and half-step invincible extremes in the universe, but invincible extremes are few and poor. People such as Bloodwave Supreme, Giant Axe Supreme, etc., are all talented and superior in the universe, but there is a barrier after all to break through the invincible supreme. I'm afraid, the word Qiyun is also missing. Luo Ming, the word Qi is important. It's not just that. For us, wanting to break from a 5-mark virtual honor to a 6-mark virtual honor. Although it requires luck, but throughout the ages, it also has a person who can break through the realm, but the 6-marked vanity wants to take that vital step. Without luck, it is absolutely impossible. Which step does the 6-mark class have? Jian Wushuang heard a word of silence, and his eyes flashed instantly. If he didn't guess wrong, it should be the realm of the virtual or the cosmic god. If this is the case, then everything can be explained clearly. Why those ancient existences born of chaos with six-marked vain respect? Why spare no effort to attack the divine universe? I'm afraid it's because the universe has limited luck. If you say that the fortunes of one universe are divided into 10 fights, and the virtual alone has already occupied 7 fights, then the only option for others to reach the level of virtual gods is to capture another universe. At that step, what is it called? Jian Wushuang asked. This is not what I have access to. The specific situation can only be understood after breaking through to a 6-mark virtual honor. The old man in the red robe shook his head and said, "Let's go, I'll take you to your guard first." "It is good." Jian Wushuang nodded, and no longer asked. After an hour, a huge basin appeared before the sword without double sides. The old man in red robe said, "Luo Ming, you are responsible for guarding here." After a pause, the old man in the red robe patted Jian Wushuang's shoulders and said with a smile, "Generally speaking, nothing major will happen. You just need to be here and wait for Lord Shushan to return triumphantly." A few more words were ordered, and the old man in the red robe left. Jian Wushuang looked around, sitting cross-legged, a Fengtian flag slid from his sleeve, inserted into the void, and then disappeared open. With a light sip, among the dark golden eyes of Jian Wushuang, countless road flashes. An invisible map emerged in his eyes. This map is truly a void in the void. I saw that Feng Tianqi was almost full in the void, and with only a single move of Jian Wushuang's mind, he could instantly start the formation and block the void. It's still the last place. This big battle is complete. Jian Wu's eyes looked at the 87th crack, whispered to himself. It is necessary to hurry up and insert the 87th crack in Fengtian banner. The next day, Jian Wushuang stood up, seemingly bored with the boring, sitting and guarding his work, and swaggered towards the surrounding. In this regard, many defenders were suspicious at first, but when they knew it was Luo Ming, they suddenly hummed and said nothing. In their opinion, Luo Ming is a soiled bun that does not understand the rules, and it is normal to do so. After wandering around for a while, Jian Wushuang saw the time was ripe, and immediately walked towards the 87th crack. 3 sides of the sky banner quietly appeared in his hands. Chapter 45-47. Inside the void. In an attic, the old man in red robe was holding the railing with both hands, listening to the return from his subordinates. Luo Ming could not help crying and laughing and shook his head. "My old friend, when I am really out of temper, I will, knowing that he would not be so peaceful. It really took a day or two to sit still." After a pause, the old man in the red robe turned his head and asked, "Where is Luo Ming now?" "Master Red Buddha, Luo Ming should now go to the 87th crack," His Majesty said with an arched hand. "Okay." The old man in Tong Hongpao nodded his head, and then groaned for a while and said, "This is no better than other places. I'll go and see him. Don't cause any trouble." The words of the cymbals fell, and the old man in the red robe stepped on his feet and walked towards the 87th crack. The 87th crack, the guard is more severe than other places. Far apart, Jian Wushuang saw a huge building like a honeycomb hovering quietly in the air. Behind this building, a crack about the size of 10 feet was constantly twisted. This crack is the 87th crack that connects the virtual universe and the divine universe. This is also the most critical place to block the void and to break the advance forces in the divine universe. Therefore, no 2 sides of the sword have to insert 3 Fengtian flags here. Noisy. The first seal of the sky banner slipped from the sword without hands, overcast in the void. Immediately, the sword Wushuang swayed towards the 87th crack. "Stop coming." Before I approached, I saw 2 weird men with long necks wearing weird robes, blocking Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang glanced at them, scratched his head, and grinned. "Hey, 2 brothers, I was recently responsible for guarding the void and letting me in." The 2 long-necked wids glanced at each other, and then frowned, and said, "You must not be ordered to call here, you must not enter here." Wu Jianshuang heard that his pupils shrank slightly. Bad 8. Is the person responsible for staying in the void forbidden land an 8 desolate respect? The thoughts in Wu Jianhuang's heart turned sharply, but on the surface he murmured, "Would you like to inform the 8 wastelands?" The 2 long-necked wids said, "Master Yahuang is talking to Lord Shushan and will not accept the announcement. You quickly return to your hometown." "Is that so?" Wu Jian Wushuang bowed his head. "He just talked to the of the universe just now. The of the universe informed him that the war between the divine universe and the virtual universe had broken out, and it was imperative that they would be delayed after breaking them. It seems that you can only use strong." Wu Jiansu silently whispered to himself. Next moment, Wu Jianwu stepped forward without waiting for the 2 long-necked monsters in charge of the guard to return. The whole person has turned into a streamer and rushed towards the 87th crack. Bold. Presumptuous, the 2 long-necked wids returned to their hearts and suddenly became furious, running weak, and chasing towards the sword unparalleled. Don't look at these 2 long-necked weirdos, they are just responsible for guarding, but at the moment, it is also an Urshan Shuzuan under the repair of an outbreak. I saw that their necks, like rubber, suddenly stretched and turned into pythons. "Go away." Jian Jianhua's eyes flashed, and he reached out with both hands, grabbing the necks of the 2 long-necked monsters. Holding in his hands, countless storms surged. I saw Jian Man's eyes twinkling in his eyes, and he stirred his hands to tie the 2 long-necked monsters' rubber-like necks to a knot, and then slapped them with a slap. "Come here." Someone breaks through the crack. Suddenly, the 2 long-necked wids roared loudly, and a harsh sirens rang out throughout the void. And sword unparalleled has stepped in front of the void crack. The thrilling wind came out from the fissure of the 87th, revealing the familiar breath of Jian Wushuang. The last 2 Fengtian flags slipped from the sword without hands and inserted into the void crack. In a short time, all the closed heavens sensed each other, and they were completely integrated into one, and the void forbidden dungeon was suppressed and blocked. Immediately, Jian Wushuang opened a message with the of the universe. "Master God, Feng Tianqi has all been installed, you can start the formation at any time." Longer from the 87th crack. The old man in the red robe was stepping forward. Before he could reach the 87th crack, a sharp alarm sounded, and it blew loudly in the sky. "What's the situation?" The old man in Tong Hongpao changed his face and instantly thought of the incident when Luo Xing reported to him that Luo Ming had gone to the 87th crack. Suddenly, his eyelids jumped, and a bad premonition filled his heart. "Isn't it something Luo Ming did?" Boom. Suddenly, the old man in the red robe stepped a little faster. "Hive Palace Group. Shu Bahuang Xuanzang is communicating with Shushan." Suddenly, a sharp alarm sounded. "Okay." He Bahuang Zhuangzhuang frowned, pleaded guilty to Shushan, cut off the communication, and immediately opened up. "Come here, what happened outside?" A subordinate hurried in, kneeling and saying, "Badaman, someone broke into the 87th crack." "What?" The face of Shu Bahuang Zun's face changed, and his expression suddenly became gloomy. He asked coldly, "Who stormed the 87th crack?" "Let's go back to the 8 wastelands. It's Luo Ming of the Red Whale Gang." "Luo Ming? He is so brave." He Bahuang Shu Zeng snorted coldly, then strode out of the camp and walked towards the crack. The 87th crack door. Sword unparalleled, start Feng Tianqi immediately. Wu Jushan said in a deep voice. "Yes." Wu Jian Wushuang nodded, took a deep breath. 99 Fengtian banner evolved in his eyes. Kai. The next moment, Jian Wushuang spit out a word softly. Rumble. The heavens and earth changed in an instant, countless gale winds roared, and the whole void was forbidden, making a roaring muffled sound, like an earthquake, and the earth began to shake violently. Countless dusts have risen, and slap cracks have spread. Snapped. A flash of lightning, like a thunderbolt blasted on a sunny day, the entire void in the void was quickly evacuated by an invisible force. Countless black chains emerged out of thin air, closing the boundless land. What happened? The old man in red robe and the 8 desolate emperor who had just arrived in front of the fissure had changed their faces. Looking up at the fissure in the void, his sword was calm and unparalleled. "Luo Ming, what have you done? Stop it. Are you looking for death?" The old man in the red robe looked at Jian Wushuang, and was shocked and angry. At the same time, a sense of anxiety erupted in his heart. I do not know why, he looked at Jen Wuxuang with a calm face, and suddenly felt an extremely strange feeling. Latest URL. Chapter 45-48. When the old man in the red robe was so anxious and yelled at him, the 8 desolate emperor had turned into a streamer, and quickly grabbed at the sword unparalleled. Wu Jianshou looked back at the two and gave a sneer at the corners of his mouth. He did not sneer with the two, but at the moment when the Fengtian formation started, the whole person stepped into the void crack. Dead. Ba Huangshu Zun grabbed his right hand severely, but what he caught was just an afterimage. Suddenly, Ba Huangsun's face was ugly. Old man in red robe rushed to the side at this time. His expression was shocked and angry. He had thought that relying on Luo Ming's temperament would inevitably cause some wrongs, but he did not expect that he would make such a terrible disaster. I looked at the expression of Tai Ching from Ba Huangshu Zun, and the old man in red robe said with guilt, "I'm sorry, but I don't know Luo Ming would do such a thing." He didn't wait for him to finish, and saw Ba Huangshuan looked at him coldly, and said, "Red Buddha, you can't see yet, I senti this person Luo Ming?" "What?" The old man in Tong Hongpao was shocked, and then thought back carefully. At first thought, he suddenly thought of countless clues. When he took Jen Wuxuang to visit the void, he talked with Jen Wuxuang several times and the funny thing between them, but he was inadvertently obscured by Jen Wuxuang. I didn't think about it in the first place. He hadn't found anything yet. Looking back at the moment, I couldn't help but think. Isn't this the exposed flaw of this person, afraid to be seen by himself? Who is this person? The old man in the red robe asked with a heartbeat. It is not important who he is now. Red Buddha, this person is a void forbidden area brought by you, and you will wait for Lord Shushan to return for accountability. Ba Huangshu Zun snorted coldly. If in the past, relying on the seniority of the old man in the red robe, he is quite polite, but in these major events, the 8 desolate respect will naturally not be as usual. At the same time, he could not help thinking of the black robe man who had stepped into the void crack from the divine universe and entered the void universe. From the divine universe? Ba Huangshu Zun narrowed his eyes and murmured to himself. Immediately, Ba Huangshuzuan no longer thought about it, but planned to connect with Shushan to report the situation. However, as soon as he was about to send a message to Shushan, his face changed suddenly. He actually found out that the line of communication between him and Shushan was like being cut by an invisible scissors, and he could not communicate with Shushan at all. Something is coming. Yao Huang's heart sank. Since the communication could not be communicated, he tried to step into the void of the void, enter the magical universe, and talk to the virtual in person. However, taking this step made his heart completely cold. I saw that before the 87th crack, there seemed to be an invisible barrier, which completely blocked the way to the divine universe. The passage between the two universes is sealed. What does this mean? 8 Wastelanders know that since they can't go by, then the virtual gods and others in the divine power universe can't come back naturally. This makes Ba Huangshuanzhuang like a falling ice cellar, chilling all over. Red Buddha, you should confess your death. Ba Huangshu Zun turned his head, staring at the old man in red robes, squeezing out the words from his teeth. Extraterrestrial battlefield. Jian's unparalleled body constantly condenses from transparency to substance, and finally reveals his figure completely. Who? Jen Wuxuang breathed out a sigh of relief, and with the successful launch of Fengtian formation, the heavy stone that had been pressed on his heart finally fell completely. I glanced around, and it was originally an extraterrestrial battlefield that was heavily occupied by soldiers. At this moment, there was only an empty space, leaving only a wave of battle between Supreme and Void, and countless broken limbs. I bang 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 tilde. There was a sound of collision roar coming from a long distance ahead. Jian Wuxuang narrowed his eyes and looked forward, and the dark golden eyes suddenly burst into countless bloodshots. His eyes directly penetrated through the void of tens of thousands of miles, and saw the two-party universe that was really at war in the base of divine universe. It's my turn. Wu Jianshou twisted his neck, and his eyes shot with turbulent warfare like a fire burning. There was a strong desire to fight, surging in his chest. Her next moment. With his right foot stepped, Zhen Jianwu turned directly into a thunder, blasting quickly towards the battlefield. Divine Power Universe Base Camp. The men and women on both sides of the universe are here, and finally a real war breaks out. Countless killing battles have begun, strangling 34 Shenzhen and 2 left and right envoys under the seat of the Colossus, as well as more 4-mark, 5-mark Zun, and so on. Erhai Lake rises to the bright moon, the immortal king comes to the 9th day, the 9-star Renju line. One vision after another emerged in this starry sky. When the two universes fought, they went directly to the hottest time. The shouting sounds were loud, and countless spells collided together. Each spell had the power to destroy the stars and cut off the galaxy. In terms of overall advantages, although the divine universe has the blessing of battling the battlefield, it still cannot beat the virtual universe. The fighting on both sides is in a tit-for-tat form. I will not mention the battle between the 9 team members under the cosmic throne and the 6-marked virtual respect brought by the virtual god. The scenes of the battle between Invincible Supreme and 6-mark Void are really terrifying and terrifying. As early as the beginning of the battle, the two gods Shu Zun and Ju God split the space and went straight into another dimension duel. Therefore, what really shocks people and plays a decisive role on the battlefield is the battle of 6-marked Vanity and Invincible Supremacy. Awakening from the Manjong Glacier, the power of the flesh overwhelming the ancestral patriarch White Ape, right against the Right Ambassador, one of the strongest combat forces under the virtual seat www.mtl Novell. Com Shinzong has a one-sided white-haired burly old man. I saw the tyrant's ancestor punching out, as if pushing a round of fierce sun, sending out magnificent golden light, blasting the void into the air, drawing numerous air away, and smashing on the right virtual body. Suddenly, that right-hand messenger also erupted an unbelievable level of terror. I saw the 2 thunderballs in his hands, directly exploded, and turned into a sea of thousands of miles, like the ancient thunder who ruled the rule of thunder in the world. The thunderous thunder smashed down one after another, facing the hegemon of the hegemon. Torrential blast. Each of these thunders is enough to kill half-step Invincible Supreme. At this moment, millions of such powerful thunderbolts are bombarded on the Patriarch's ancestors, and their power can hardly be described. The same man who once also extinct the ancient times, and then concealed the playful world, laughed and asked the big dream of 3,000 years old, and the age of the wine lunatic Laokia, who was fighting with Zwashusha. He saw that the lid of the wine gourd in the hands of the wine lunatic was torn open by him, and a stream of chaotic water was pouring out like a river, flooding the mantis-like left emptiness. Chapter 45-49. Weak and weak. Weak and weak. Too weak. It seems that you haven't made progress in these 100,000 chaos period. The ancestors of the tyrants robbed minds, shook the electric light hard, and each punch was enough to explode hundreds of suns. The force was sinking to the extreme and the domineering to the extreme. 3,000 and 6,000 drunks, with the era of sorrow. As a drunken man like an old beggar, he directly turned a galaxy into a field of sunflower water, and the sound of waves crashed. Fights like this are constantly happening in the stars. Whether it is the Invincible Supreme of the Divine Universe or the 6-marked Virtual Supreme of the Void Universe, each of them is the pinnacle of the era that has dominated the era. At this moment, these ancient powers are all awake from their deep sleep, and they can be described as extremely powerful. Someone pointed at the starburst, someone broke the galaxy, and others incarnate billions of feet, swallowing thousands of miles of starry sky. In the aftermath of the encounter between them, as if there were countless big worlds destroyed, chaos would boil and restart, and heaven and earth would break apart. He said it was extinct. The strong men of the 3 dragons, and phoenixes also showed their ability to dominate the universe. An 8-clawed evil dragon directly swallowed a group of bright galaxies, turned it into the purest energy, and shot out a breath of destruction. With a colorful phoenix, Qingming rose into the sky behind him, burning countless avenues of magical fire around his body, turning millions of stars into a raging sea of fire, directly cracking the void and burning. A 5-marked virtual honor fell into this endless flame of fire, and it disappeared without any residue. The tribe of Kirin is even more horrible. A three-headed unicorn, at each step, stamps out a flame mark in the void, exuding the power of an endless king, and can't help but bow his head and worship. The opponents of the three of them are from Tianyao Holy Land, the first and second ancestors of Tianyao who have slept from ancient times to the present, and an old monster that is not weaker than them. In the face of these three people, the strong players of the three dragon and phoenix unicorns did not have a half-point victory. Sword comes. Divine Power Universe Wu Zhenxian, the first person of Kendo in the world, under one sword, overturned millions of stars and rivers, staring at the sky. Hanman flickered in her eyes. Although she was a woman, she was not inferior to anyone in the audience. Sometimes she opened the gate to the sky, and sometimes she rushed to the sky. Her strength has already unknowingly reached the level of Tai Luo Supreme, perhaps not reached. There are also several major captain-level figures, such as Taishu Emperor, Zero Wood Supreme, Luxai Supreme, and Heiyuan Supreme, etc., which also burst into an extremely bright light. This kind of battle is simply unprecedented. In this kind of battle, who dares to call invincible, which dare to say undefeated? A name is invincible and supreme, with 6 marks of virtual respect, each showing his magical power, shocking the world. For a while, they could even kill them. After all, at their level, in fact, they were not too much in terms of combat power. Each had its own killer at the bottom of the box, which was difficult to separate in a short time. Winning and losing. The battle between some ordinary trace-level virtual lords and supreme lords is much more intense. A name placed in the universe can be regarded as the scary vain and supreme lord of the big man. In this battle, it can be said that the ant's cannon fodder is not exaggerated. From time to time, the supreme strong person falls down and wails. The casualties between them are almost straight up. The worst thing is that the situation between these ordinary supreme and virtual lords has begun to tilt towards the virtual universe. All this comes from a monster with a dog head and a huge axe. He was wearing a broken suit of molten armor, surrounded by faint blue light, no eyes pupils in his eyes, only a blue orn, staring at his eyes, as if staring into the abyss. The 5 long marks on the left shoulder where he was not covered by the slurry, so that he was barely exposed, were dazzling to the extreme. In the battlefield, he is simply a war machine, or of death returned from hell. No one can stop. I saw that he was holding a giant axe like a pharaoh's scepter in both hands, and the blue light around him formed a halo, which was severely knocked down. It was a half-step invincible supremacy of the divine universe. What's even more weird is that after the half-step invincible supreme was beheaded by the monster with this dog-head's body, it turned into a long string of blood beads, which was automatically dropped into the monster's mouth and swallowed by him. And this dog-headed human monster had a slight injury, but he recovered instantly, and his body skyrocketed. I'm afraid that when he kills some more people, he can reach the level of threatening invincibility. We can say that this dog-headed monster has affected the whole battle. Not only has his injury recovered, but his strength has increased by 1 point. What kind of monster is this? The dragon scales turned out all over, and the wolf reached the extreme Longqing. He looked at the dog-headed monster with a look of horror. There was no more majesty in his eyes, but he was terrified to the extreme. He is half-step invincible and supreme, and he can be regarded as a strong person in this realm. He would not be directly slashed by an axe, but it is not much better. He was directly slashed by this dog-headed monster and the horn was cut off. In one section, the entire body has a huge and deep wound. He was far away, and Zhu Jiawang's face was also gloomy to the extreme. He is not an opponent of this dog-head monster. If he is in the same realm with this dog-headed monster, he is confident that he can defeat this beast-headed monster, even beheaded. However, his cultivation status is too low, and he is still a distance from the Supreme. Go on like this, the ordinary Supreme in the entire universe will be beheaded and killed by this person, and will become a nourishment to increase his strength. At that time, once this person grows up, the invincible Supreme and the 6-mark Vignity, the short-term balance maintained between them will also be broken. At that time, it is very likely that all games will be lost. What to do now, how to deal with him, who can be his opponent? At this moment, the arrogant king of Zhu Cai, who is always arrogant, also feels bitter in his mouth and despair in his heart. Junks from the divine universe, quickly submit to my fucking. The monster walking the head of the dog laughed wildly and looked at the eyes of King Jojia and Long Qing, full of contempt and disdain. Is this the strength of the divine universe? It is really scary to be weak. The dog-headed monster shook his head, and immediately put out his tongue and licked his lips, showing greed and cruelty in his eyes. As long as all the people on the other side are beheaded and turned into their own nourishment, if they want to come, they will be enough to break through to the 6 marks level, right? Thinking of this, the dog-headed monster chuckled, holding a giant axe, and walked towards the ordinary supreme in the divine universe again. He raised his huge axe high, ready to split. Beneath his giant axe, several high-ranking, top-ranking supreme, despairing, ashamed. I haven't waited for him to chop. Ding! A dazzling sword light, as if Tianhe rolled down and swept across the sky, suddenly came from far away across thousands of miles. Chapter 4550. Okay. Holding a giant axe, the dog-headed monster that was about to be slashed, feeling the icy sword that locked him and sprinting at him quickly, could not help but stagnate his hands, and slowly looked back. Suddenly, the dog-headed monster whispered, and his pupils could not help shrinking. At the same time, Long Qing and King Nine Calamities, including many people who are fighting, all stopped in their hands and looked up at the bright sword light that struck the sky and split the yin and yang. This is Sword Warriors. Jian Wushuang is back. Suddenly, countless people in the divine universe were shaken, all exclaimed. During the 5,000-year battle of Jian Wushuang in the sword, he has already conquered countless people with his own strength, and gained great fame. Boom! In a blink of an eye, this sword light rushed to the ground, fiercely chopping on the monster with a dog head. Weak trash. When the dog-headed monster saw this, he was not afraid to laugh, and the long axe in his hand swept away, and he collided with the Taro Excalibur in the swordless hand. Ding! A sharp, extremely explosive sound exploded, and then, a huge shock wave spread out in a fan shape from the encounter between the two, and its mixed terrorist power directly shattered countless voids, setting off a cloud of smoke. Rewind. The numerous monks and fictitious monks who were fighting all around changed their looks and quickly retreated. Immediately afterwards, everyone saw that the monster with a huge dog head who called himself Hell King was like being hit by a heavy hammer. The whole person crossed a line of arcs and shot backwards from the sky, with his legs in there were 2 long marks in the void. Gradually, smoke and dust gradually spread, revealing a figure of a young man in black. This young man with black hair has a cold and indifferent face. Among the pair of pale golden pupils, there is no emotion, and the purple Chuan word is bright and charming. Hold the 5 knuckle fingers in his hand and hold the Taro Excalibur. The strong sword pressure forms the substance, spreading around him as the center, and arrogant in all directions. Sure enough, it is the sword unparalleled. Jian Wushuang, this guy is stronger. Medium Supreme. Jian Wushuang even broke through the Medium Supreme, a fast practice speed. Suddenly, countless people shrank their pupils. They can feel that Jian Wushuang is more powerful than before, not only the strength of cultivation, but also the feeling leaked out by the whole person. The current sword is unparalleled, just like the peerless sacred sword that tore for 9 days, with a look full of great coercion, which makes people dare not look straight. Wu Jian's eyes were indifferent. Looking around, he immediately saw countless familiar faces. King of the 9 Kings, Overlord, Maruo Yengu, Long Qing. Too much, too many people who have been entangled with him, at this moment are all wounded, and extremely miserable. I am back. Shu took a deep breath, and Jian eyes shot intently. This battlefield is where he should stay. Immediately afterwards, Jian Wushuang bowed his head slightly and looked towards the fucking. I saw that although the fucking was split and flew by the sword Wushuang-yi sword, the whole body's breath was not attenuated. The deep visible bone sword cut on his chest was regrown at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a few breaths, it resumed as before. Weak trash, do you know that you are provoking a great being? Hell King smiled and spoke, a more terrifying breath came out of him. I felt this breath, and everyone around me changed his face, like a fucking with a dog head, turned into an abyss of death. Noise. Wu Jian glanced at him with no expression on both sides, and then the whole person turned into dawning golden light, and killed the fucking again. Han Han's sword intentions poured out from Jian Wushuang's hands. In an instant, Jian Wushuang disappeared, and Tai Luo's Excalibur also disappeared. Among the heavens and the earth, there is only the breaking dawn sword that breaks all darkness and brings dawn to earth. He is overbearing, fierce, and sharp, and cannot use any words to describe this horrible sword. With this sword, Amami is at an extreme. Life is part of the cycle, and your part is over. Death strike. The fucking roared, the endless blue horns, all condensed on the axe of his axe, fiercely chopped at the sword Wushuang. This blow is much stronger than before. It can be said that it has stood at the peak of the invincible supreme. Boom. Under the clash of the two, the world suddenly shook, as if there were countless big worlds falling apart. A larger shock wave spread instantly, enough to annihilate 100 stars in an instant. The two cosmic people who were fighting around him relapsed again. A 3-mark vanity, whose speed was only 1 step slower, was hanged by the sword of Wushuang and Hell, and became smashed into powder. Qi Jian Wushuang's right hand holding the sword, the tiger's mouth trembled. The power of this axe was enough to blast the sun. Rao is a chaotic domineering body, and then felt a little hard. But this is not the most critical. The most important thing is that the axe of Hell King seems to have the power of devouring. At the moment of the fight, he wants to devour the sword's vitality. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang is a super-perfect chaotic life. With only a slight movement of divine power, this swallowing power is suppressed. Oh! Actually blocked it. It seems you are better than those ants. Hell's eyes narrowed, and a slight surprise appeared on his face. But the next moment, there was a smirk in his lips. However, in front of me, it is just a slightly stronger ant, cannot change your weak nature. Death strike. Countless blue horns, once again gathered on the axe blade of the axe in the fucking's hand, chopping fiercely towards the sword unparalleled. You are too slow. Jian Wushuang sneered, directly urging Dragon Blood Mystery, and the speed soared tenfold in a sudden. After just a flash, he appeared behind the Hell King, and the Tara sword in his hand exploded, tilting towards the head of the Hell King. Leaving. Open the sky. Annoying rubbish, can it only sneak attack? The fucking frowned, and speed was indeed his weakness. Alas, he also has a solution. He first raised the long axe in his hand to block the sword, and then stepped forward to distance himself from the sword. Finally, he raised his right hand, aimed at Jian Wushuang, and said, "Imagination, withering rhythm." The words of the symbol fell, and innumerable blue lights burst out in the void, densely converging towards his palm, forming a blue vortex. The next moment, these blue lights burst out from his palm and penetrated into Jian Wushuang's body. In a short time, the speed of Jian Wushuang became slow, and the breath of the whole body began to fall and decay, like the flowers and bones in the autumn wind, and gradually withered. Chapter 45-51. The outbreak of a battle. Bang, bang. Just as the red-robed elder was about to scold Jian Wushuang, Void Master Ba Huang had already turned into a streak of flowing light and reached out to grab Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang looked back at the two of them and sneered. He did not waste time talking to them. The moment the Fengtian formation was activated, he stepped into the crack in the void. Die. Void Master Ba Huang's right hand reached out, but what he caught was only an afterimage. Instantly, Void Master Ba Huang's face turned extremely ugly. The red-robed old man rushed to the side, his expression shocked and angry. He had thought that with Luo Ming's temperament, he would definitely cause some trouble, but he did not expect that he would cause such a great disaster. Looking at the ashen expression of Void Master Ba Huang, the red-robed elder said guiltily, "Void Master Ba Huang, I'm sorry. I didn't know Luo Ming would do such a thing." Before he could finish, Void Master Ba Huang looked at him coldly and said, "Hongfor, can't you tell that this man is not Luo Ming?" "What?" The red-robed old man was startled upon hearing this, and he immediately began to carefully recall. As he thought about it, he immediately thought of countless clues. When he showed Jian Wushuang around the void forbidden land, He talked to Jian Wushuang several times about the interesting things that happened between them, but Jian Wushuang brushed him off with vague words. At first, he did not think in this direction, so he did not notice anything. Now that he thought about it, he could not help but think, that person must be afraid that he would be exposed. Then who is this person? The red-robed old man's heart skipped a beat as he asked. Ph, it doesn't matter who he is now. Hong For, you were the one who brought this person into the Void Forbidden Land. Just wait for Lord Void God to come back and question you. Void Master Ba Huang snorted. In the past, given the red-robed elder's years of cultivation experience, he would still be rather polite. However, on such a major event, Void Master Ba Huang would naturally not act as usual. At the same time, he could not help but think of the image of the sky spider old monster. He had seen the black-robed man step into the crack in the void from the Divine Power Universe and enter the Void Universe. From the Divine Power Universe? Void Master Ba Huang squinted his eyes and muttered to himself. Immediately, Void Master Ba Huang stopped thinking and planned to contact Void God to inform him of the situation. However, just as he was about to send a message to Void God, his expression changed drastically. He realized that the communication line between him and Void God seemed to have been cut off by an invisible pair of scissors. He could not communicate with Void God at all. Something big is going to happen. Void Master Ba Huang's heart sank. Since he could not communicate with Void God, he tried to step into the crack in the void and enter the Divine Power Universe to talk to Void God face to face. However, the moment he took that step, his heart turned cold. There seemed to be an invisible barrier in front of the 87th crack, which completely blocked the path to the Divine Power Universe. The channel between the two universes had been sealed. Void Master Ba Huang understood what this meant. Since he could not go over, Void God and the others in the Divine Power Universe would naturally not be able to return. This made Ba Huang feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar and his body shivered. Hong For, you should atone for your sins with your death. Void Master Ba Huang turned around and stared at the red-robed elder. Off-world battlefield. Jian Wushuang's body turned from transparent to solid and finally, he was completely revealed. Phew! Jian Wushuang heaved a sigh of relief. With the successful activation of the Fengtian formation, the heavy stone that had been weighing on his heart was finally lifted. He looked around and saw that the off-world battlefield, which was originally an important place for militarists, was now empty. Only the shockwaves from the battle between the supreme martial artists and the Void Masters and countless broken limbs were left. Boom, boom, boom. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and looked forward. His dark golden eyes were bloodshot. His eyes pierced through thousands of miles of void space and saw the base camp of the Divine Power Universe, where the two universes were fighting. It's my turn. Jian Wushuang twisted his neck and his eyes were burning with fighting intent. A strong desire to fight surged in his chest. Bang! The next moment, Jian Wushuang stomped his right foot and turned into a thunderbolt, shooting toward the battlefield. In the base camp of the Divine Power Universe, the people from both universes finally started a real war here, clashing with their weapons. Countless killing formations were activated, killing the 34 Void Masters and the 2 Void Emissaries under Cosmic God, as well as the other Void Masters with 4 and 5 scars. The moon rose from the sea, the Celestial King descended from the 9 heavens, and the 9 stars were connected. One after another, strange phenomena appeared in the starry sky. The moment the two universes clashed, it was the time when they were at their most white and hot. The sound of killing filled the sky as countless spells collided. Each of them had the power to destroy stars and cut the Milky Way. In terms of overall advantage, although the Divine Power Universe had the support of the Killing Formation, it still could not win against the Void Universe. The battle between the two sides was in a tit-for-tat situation. Not to mention the 9 teams under the command of Cosmos God and the battle between the Void Masters under the 6 scar level brought by Void God. The scene of the fight between the Invincible Supremes and the 6 scar Void Masters was extremely terrifying. The moment the battle started, Void God and Cosmos God had already split open space and entered another dimension to fight. Therefore, What really shocked people and played a decisive role on the battlefield was the battle between a six-scar Void Master and an invincible Supreme. The Overlord Patriarch, White Ape, who had awakened from the glacier and unparalleled physical strength, was fighting against one of the strongest fighting powers under Void God, the Right Void Emissary, who was also the white-haired, burly old man that Jen Wushuang had met once in the God-refining sect. They watched as Overlord Patriarch punched out. It was as if he was pushing a blazing sun. It emitted a golden light that caused the void to explode. Countless air was drawn out and smashed onto the body of the Right Void Emissary. As for the emissary, he had also exploded with unbelievable and terrifying strength. The two thunderballs in his hands exploded and turned into a sea of thunder. It was as if the ancient thunder god who controlled the thunder laws of the world had descended to the world. Terrifying thunderbolts came crashing down one after another toward Overlord Patriarch like a violent storm. Every single bolt of lightning was more than enough to annihilate a half-invincible Supreme. At this moment, millions of tribulation lightning bolts of this level of power struck the body of the Overlord Patriarch. The power of this was simply indescribable. The crazy alcoholic old beggar, who had also dominated the ancient era and later hid in the mortal world, was fighting with the left Void Emissary. The crazy alcoholic pulled open the lid of the wine gourd, and a stream of primal chaos sunflower water gushed out like a river, submerging the left Void Emissary, who looked like a mantis. Chapter 45-52, Boom. Instantly, all three forces fell on the fucking. The hell-bodied body of the fucking was suddenly soaring with blood. Thousands of swords smashed his thin bones like a blood rain. The two cosmic people around me looked at this scene, their hearts were shocked to the extreme. Medium Supreme, such a mighty outbreak. It has never been done before. Too strong. Scalp. This sword of Wushuang is horrible to burst. Countless people marveled. And sword unparalleled, with the eyes indifferent, the body gradually rises to the sky. Taro Sword Code, 4th Style, 4 Seasons. Winter to spring, spring to summer. The chanting voice dropped. Behind Jen Wushuang, a huge round of flaming sun emerged. The area of this big sun is larger than the ordinary 10 suns. The hot high temperature is burning all this, and a piece of red light that maps the universe is burning the blazing flame on the surface of the big sun, as if it were 10. The sun was a big fireball, horrifying beyond description. Next moment. Burning. Wu Jianshu's hands quickly stamped, pressing down towards Hell King. Instantly, this huge fireball rolled down towards the fucking of the dog head. In the void, there was a roar. Hell King looked up at this scene, and finally couldn't keep his face calm anymore, but roared out. Break me. Incarnation of death. As soon as I said this, I saw that something terrifying to many people had happened. Countless blue flames surged from Hell King's skin to form thick flame armor. His body, at a speed visible to the naked eye, began to skyrocket, and in other places, thousands of miles away, it was absorbed by it, and turned into nutrients for his growth. He stands proudly, holds a long axe, and burns blue blazing flames all over his body. At the same time, the cosmic starry sky starts to wither at the same time as death. Broken. There was a flash of insanity in his eyes. First, he raised the long axe in his hand and slashed it down to smash the dusk pit under his feet. Immediately, he opened his mouth again and directed it toward the falling sun. Make a roar that shakes for 9 days and 10 places. Explosive. I saw him burning blue flames all gathered in his open dog mouth, forming a huge blue ball with thunderous thunder and lightning shuttle. As soon as this blue ball appeared, it suddenly exudes surging power of extinction, far exceeding all his previous move. This fucking was forced to perform a virtual explosion. It seems that he has been forced by the sword unparalleled to the point that he must take out the killer. As long as Jen Wushuang survives this move, the fucking will surely die. Suddenly, the Supreme Master of countless divine powers clenched his fists, and a heart reached his throat. Boom. I saw this blue ball, turning it into a thick beam of light in the mouth of the bowl, and it spewed out of Hell King's mouth instantly, and was bombarded in the falling syrup big sun. For a moment, the world lost its voice. The dazzling and brilliant light emanated from the two. The next moment, everyone saw the round of syrup, which was directly penetrated by the fucking's exploding blue ball from the middle and scattered around. Good job. Wu Jian's eyes were narrowed, and his face was not panic-stricken, but the flames of war were burning in his eyes. The turbulent warfare, straight into the Xiaohan, shocked for 9 days. Taro sword code, 5th style, Taro. Yang Jian Wushuang uttered this word coldly. Suddenly, a round of FA phase appeared behind Jian Wushuang. A handsome young man holding a hip flask in his left hand and dancing a sword with his right hand, but with an endlessly chic figure, appeared behind the sword Wushuang. I am not someone else, it is the one who asks the world with a smile during the peak period. Before the sword Wushuang, the 5th power of the Tailuo sword code has not yet been fully used, but now, after the sword Wushuang breaks through the medium supreme, the power of this sword is no less powerful than the true hit. With the movement of Jian Wushuang slowly raising the Taro Excalibur, the Titan Supreme facial phase behind the sword Wushuang also raised the Taro Excalibur. Cut. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were cold, and he spit out the word coldly. Suddenly, Taro Supreme and Sword Warriors are integrated. A sword like Changhong like a dragon was instantly chopped out by the Tai Luo Excalibur, splitting the world and running through the sun and the moon. Before this sword, it has surpassed the half-step invincible supreme realm. After the sword was cut out, everything looked bleak across the sky, leaving only the glory of the sword. Even the many invincible and 6-marked supreme fighting in the distance couldn't help looking at his head slightly, and looked towards Jian Wushuang. Is this guy so accomplished in kendo? The captain of the 7th team, once the first person in the universe to knife the path, Supreme Heiyuan sighed. The little guy is becoming more and more shadowy. Wu Wuxian Immortal flashed in the same beautiful eyes. Just now, she actually felt the glorious and heroic attitude of Jian Wushuang. This could not help her, my heart beat. Hell King defeated. In the void, the place where the tissue stands. He wore a red mask, rubbed a golden card in his hand, and shook his head indifferently. Next moment, he capped the action of playing golden cards. When this son grows up, it will become a trump card in Xian Yi's hands. Let's take him back for transformation. Boom. It was like Long Jian Hong, and finally collided with Hell King's exploding ball. This sword can be Ping Shan, reclamation. Almost instantaneously, the Yu Kanshu www.ukanshu.com that overwhelming and exploding virtual ball, showing a destructive and rotten posture, is like a knife-cut tofu, and it is beveled by this sword. At your fingertips, this sword splits the thorns and chops again, towards the fucking. Do not. The fucking's face changed greatly, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. He just woke up from his deep sleep, he still has to show his talents in the universe, and he has countless great things to do. How can he die here? Strangled in the hands of what he considers a garbage ant. As soon as he turned to escape, he saw that the heavens and the earth were turned into a line, and the most glorious sword was cut diagonally on the fucking's body. Tear it. Suddenly, a sword mark appeared on the magnificent body of Hell King, from his left shoulder to his right waist. Soon. Boom. Hell King's body was separated, and he was split into two by this sword. Alas. Immediately, the body of the fucking was constantly struggling and twisting, trying to reorganize and resurrect, but the fierce and domineering sword energy was repeatedly crushed and killed. The life of the fucking quickly dissipated. Just 10 breaths later, the fucking completely turned into a pile of black ash, and with the anger of the sword, it turned into nothingness. With a sword, the fucking is dead. Chapter 45-53. Hell King fell. Stinging his body, he quickly collapsed and disintegrated, turned into countless black ash, was stirred by the strong wind of the air, and then completely dissipated in the air. Due to the vacuum belt created by the battle between Hell King and Sword Wushuang, only Sword Wushuang is left, standing with a sword, his face is proud, and a black robe does not stick to the earth, as if he was shooting the fairy, and it is like the peerless sword Ling Chen. Everyone is staring at Jian Wushuang. They did not expect that this battle would end so quickly. They had expected that Jian Wushuang would win, but they did not expect that they had just used the virtual Hell King, and between the hands, they were directly suppressed by Jian Wushuang's sharp sword. This victory came so fast that they couldn't react. Sword Wushuang so winning? The 9 kings of calamity, the overlord, and the supreme master of countless divine powers all stared at each other, and the shock on their faces couldn't stop. For a moment, the audience was dead. After 3 breaths, the whole universe is boiling. God bless the universe, an old-fashioned top-level extreme, clenched his fists, his whole body was too excited, and shivered with excitement. God bless my magical universe. Sword Wushuang is so proud of the evil. I think at the beginning, the 6 top forces, such as the Taishu Temple, the Dragon Clan, and the Daewu Temple, also had to hang and kill Jian Wushuang. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang stood up, otherwise this time, I will wait for danger. Jiang Wushuang is the treasure of our universe, but also the hope of the future of our universe. We must never have half-minded thinking about him. Countless people are excited. Then the several supreme masters who were about to be killed under the axe of Hell King were rushed by Jian Wushuang to rescue them, and they even stared at Long Qing, who was shrinking aside, saying with a sense, Jiang Wushuang is my lifeguard of the iron fence old monster. From now on, my iron-hound old man is the sword of Wushuang only. Yes. If there is no sword warrior, my heavenly side has died in the hands of that doghead monster. If anyone dares to say that sword warrior is not good in the future, he will be my enemy. So is Lao Tzu. Jian Wushuang, I give you this life. If you have any orders from now on, you say hello. Shong Qiaobi falls to Huangquan. I am afraid to say no to Zhou Yi. I will thunder. Don't die. These people started talking. Zun Longqing flinched aside, looking at Jian Wushuang with complex eyes, and there was a touch of fear in his eyes. The sword of Wushuang's sword splits the heavens and the earth, separates chaos, and runs through the sun, moon, and star river, which is too terrifying. He asked himself that he could never take the sword. How can this guy's strength improve so fast? Chen Longqing murmured to himself. He practiced 130 chaos eras, and reached a half-step invincible supremacy. From the perspective of the universe, it is an incredible existence. Even if it is placed in the dragon family, it can also be included in history, but it is the leader of the 4 generations of the dragon family. The sword is unparalleled, so far less than 1,000,000 years of practice, he has surpassed him in combat power. The gap was so big that he felt hopeless. In the void, as Jian Wushuang slashed Hell King, the morale of the entire divine universe increased by a few points. On the contrary, it was the person of the virtual universe. If his face was ashes, his body would tremble like a sieve. Kill. Yang Jian Wushuang's black hair flew up, standing proudly in the void, coldly spitting out this sentence. The utterance of the words fell, and the sword unparalleled stepped forward, and once again turned into a sword rainbow running through the sun and the moon, and beheaded towards the camp of the virtual universe. Behind him, the supreme of the divine power universe roared in response. Kill. 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 Kill 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 kill. Numerous medium, high, top, and even half-step invincible supremes are headed by Jian Wushuang, with a terrific murderous outburst, killing towards the camp of the virtual universe. They are like a sharp knife, fiercely inserted into the virtual soldiers of the virtual universe, and Sword Wushuang is the sharpest point of this sharp knife. Cut stars. Wu Jian's eyes were cold, flashing cold, raised the Tai Luo Excalibur, and severely chopped off. Suddenly, a moment of Buddha groaned, and the trembling voice of the devil's cry cried out from the Taro Excalibur. The blade of the sacred sword suddenly trembled tens of thousands of times, forming a long silver sword rainbow. This sword, across Tianhe, dominates the starry sky, among the faint, as if there are 9 heavenly immortals. Boom tilde. Take a sword and kill more than 100 virtual respect. The entire virtual universe camp is filled with sorrow and sorrow. Even if there is a strong one, he did not die on this sword, but he was caught up and killed by the king of 9 robbers, Iron Fence Boss, and Overlord, who were closely followed by Jian Wushuang. After a while, not to mention the battle between Shu Xing and the cosmic god, nor the battle between the invincible supreme and the 6 marks, and the triumphant nature of the war between the ordinary supreme and the ordinary Shu Zun gradually leaned towards the side of the divine universe. Come. In the void, where the organization is. Bite one, aren't we shot yet? Wu Yang said with a frown. I heard the words covered by the red mask on my face, and did not rush to answer, but just the right eye that was exposed, watching Jian Wushuang. In the waveless gaze of Gujing, he flickered slightly. Hunichi has a good hand. I seemed to sigh, and sighed slightly. Immediately, taking up the golden card in his hand, he threw it in the direction of the sword unparalleled. After a while, this golden card spins out of his hand. Go ahead. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang was slashing with his sword. Suddenly, he seemed to perceive something, and suddenly looked up and looked in the direction of the void. A flash of astonishment flashed in his eyes. The hair was upright and now. Next moment, I saw a golden card, jumping out of the void, and constantly dilated pupils in Jian Wu's eyes. A great terror between life and death surged in Jian Wushuang's heart, a chill, straight from his back to the top of his head. This card has a sense of danger like never before. This is. Jian Wushuang's expression was shocked. However, he hasn't waited for his feet to rise. Take a weird force and blast it off this golden card. Suddenly, a force of folded spacetime was uploaded from the golden card, and the entire universe of starry sky began to tremble quickly. Next moment, horrible things happened. As if three-dimensional spacetime has become two-dimensional spacetime, whether it is Jian Wushuang, or the starry sky in the universe, or the other two cosmic personnel who are fighting, all the movements stop and become a painting. Wu Jian, Wushuang and so on, including countless stars, all disappeared. There is only one painting left, floating down in the void. The swordsman and others were all in the painting. This is dimensional reduction blow. Chapter 45-54. What is dimensionality reduction? If we say that the universe is formed into a three-dimensional space, and everyone is a three-dimensional existence, then two-dimensional is a very different existence from three-dimensional space. For example, the patterns on the drawings, the characters in the villain's book, etc., it is flat, rigid, without any vitality. This golden card actually folds the space directly at 360 degrees without dead angles in all directions, making it one of the three dimensions of the universe, and wirelessly compresses it to collapse. All of this is really terrifying. Jian Wushuang couldn't even make room for struggling, so he felt like he was falling into a trance, and he couldn't move at all. In the distance, some people in the two universes, which were not within the scope of the dimensionality reduction, suddenly took a breath of air, and were shocked. What kind of ghost and means? They looked at each other with a fierce disbelief in their eyes. This method is far beyond the scope of their understanding. Even if he is invincible, he just throws his hands up, blasts millions of stars, breaks the galaxy, and swallows the sun. This is the power generated by real strength. They have never heard of it. A small card can directly change the structure of the universe in silence. I only have some old-fashioned virtual universes and honors. After flashing my eyes, I seem to remember something, and I can't help but feel shocked. Tissue eater. Here is the tissue eater. The ancestors of the red leaf ancestors of the Manchu ancestors at that time, tens of thousands of disciples, because they offended the phagocytized tissue, and the phagocytized tissue was directly struck with dimensionality reduction to instantly destroy it. Only these lunatics have such terrible and weird means. They looked around in a panic. Apparently the phagocytic organization was with them as a virtual universe, but they faced the phagocyte without any joy at all, but panic to the extreme. It is impossible to speculate on tissues with common sense. They are mysterious, weird, and powerful, just like a bottomless ocean, which is impossible to see through. Even the false gods, in two cataclysmic wars, never mentioned the phagocytic organization, let alone force the phagocytic organization to shoot. The background is horrifying. Sure enough, after their words fell, the 7 figures in black robes stepped out of the void step by step. They are all dressed in loose black robes, with different appearances. There are explosive women who look enchanting and smirk between sentient beings. There are wolf-headed men holding black long swords and tall monsters full of weird tattoos. They are like meatballs. The obese giant who walked first was a person with a thin figure and a red mask on his face, showing only one eye. He is one of the most mysterious beings, even in the tissues. Even the other people in the tissues don't know much about him. It really is them. The numerous vain esteems of the imaginary universe shrank their pupils, and quickly avoided them. Those who were far away from these 7 people did not dare to block their way. I swallowed an expression of indifference, stepping into the universe step by step. He reached out and grabbed the golden card reflecting the bright starry sky, and soared Wushuang and others, a spin, and flew into his hand again. This golden card is about to fall into the hands of one bite. An old Optimus giant hand full of age spots suddenly emerged from the void. When this golden card was about to reach one hand, he grabbed the golden card first, and then fiercely moved to the next one. Pulled it into the void. Oh! Glittering, his eyelids were raised slightly, and his gaze looked towards the void with which the giant hand retracted. I saw there an old man with dim eyes, aging spots on his face, and an old man full of decay, walking through the void step by step. This old man is no one else, but he is the Gava Supreme of the 5 Chief Supremes of the Palace of Life. The supreme silence of Gaifu was silent, but his back was straight, holding a golden card in his hand, and looked at the 7 people in a peaceful expression. At a glance, the golden card was taken away by Gafu Supreme, and his expression was equally flat, but there was a slight surprise in his eyes, and he said, "Oh? Is this universe approaching people at this level?" After the words fell, he shook his head, as if regretful, and then said to himself, "But unfortunately, the source of life is too severely damaged. I am afraid that it has not been a few years to live a good life. It is impossible to really go beyond this step and reach another level." When people around me heard this, they could not help scratching their heads. Take this step. At this level? What does mean? Ji Gaifu heard that there were no waves in his turbid eyes, but he said lightly, "There is an old man, Jian Wushuang, you can take it today." After he finished speaking, a red flame emerged from Gavro's hand, burning the golden card. This golden card suddenly burst into smoke and began to twist. After a few breaths, Xian Dagan was hit by dimensionality reduction, and Jian Wushuang et al., who was sealed in another dimension, jumped out of the void. Wu Jian's expression was pale, and his forehead was covered with bean sweat beads. He first looked at the 7 people who had eaten the tissues, and there was a deep fear in his eyes. This dimensionality reduction strikes to the extreme. In the face of this dimensionality reduction blow, he didn't have any resistance and was directly suppressed by the seal, a magical power that could not show any trace. Even if he was rescued by Gava Supreme at this moment, he couldn't bear a anger in his heart. At the same time, a flash of enlightenment flashed through his heart. He finally understood that why the billions of souls in the kingdom of Tai Luo, which Tai Luo Supreme had opened up, were all killed in an instant. As soon as Jiyu Yang heard the words of Supreme Gav, there was no anger on his face, but he took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and immediately said, "Trust me, we will meet again." The words of the crickets dropped, and a black water stain appeared under the feet of the 7 people headed by Bit 1. The 7 of them sink gradually and disappear into this starry sky. Until they left completely, Jian Wushuang finally let out a long sigh of relief, and then looked at Supreme Gafu, with some surprises, but more grateful to say, "Gaifu, thank you for your help." He paused. Wu Jianshuang asked, "Are you okay?" Ji Gaofu nodded his head, and just about to speak, a flash of flushing appeared on the old face, and his mouth spit out the dark blood. With the spit of this blood, Gafu Supreme's already decaying breath became even more debilitating. Gaifu Sr. When Jian saw this, he couldn't help but change his face. He quickly reached out his hand and went to help Jiao Fu Supreme. Chapter 45-55. I don't care about the husband. After waiting for Jian Wushuang to reach out to support Gafu Supreme, he saw that Gafu Supreme waved his hand toward Jian Wushuang, signaling that he was okay. Jian Wushuang saw this, and had to stop his movements, but his heart was sinking. I covered the supreme body. I'm afraid it won't be long. Seeing the expression of Jian Wushuang, Supreme could not help but force a stubborn smile on his face, and said comfortingly, "Jian Wushuang, you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to worry about it. Life and death are just the norm in the world. The old man saw you have what you have today. I am also at ease, even if the old man really left this time, and I want to have you in the future to take care of the life shrine. The life shrine will definitely come better than under my leadership. After he finished speaking, he raised his head and looked up at the battlefield of Invincible Supreme and 6-mark Void. For the divine universe, the situation is not optimistic. Although in the war between Ordinary Supreme and Trace-level Vanity, due to the addition of Jian Wushuang, the victory has basically been locked, but if you really want to reverse the decision between the two universes, you still have to look at the invincible supremacy between them. Fighting, and the battle between the gods of the gods and the gods of the universe. The power of the divine power universe is aided by 8 parties. The number of invincible supremes is not much worse than these 34 virtual honors, but in terms of combat power, it is a bit worse. The old ancestor of the BABA, the white ape, was fierce and overbearing. Each punch had the power of a starburst. He opened the bow from side to side, and under a wild bombardment, he immediately overwhelmed the right virtual envoys in charge of thunder and lightning. But except for him, almost all the invincible supremes are at a disadvantage. Wu Yuan was still the invincible Wu Zhenxian. After fighting against Ji Yu Heng, he immediately fell into a disadvantage. Ji Yu Heng Shuzun, who once dominated the era in the virtual universe, in terms of his years of practice, he is an ancient figure who is several times the number of Wu Zhenxian. Various killing magical powers emerge from his hands, forcing Wu Zhenxian to do nothing. Parry without a fight back. The most important thing is that Ji Yu Heng has a pair of copper rings in his hands. This pair of copper rings is indestructible, strong and abnormal, and has the ability to zoom in and out. The 2 copper rings are horns of each other, and they are pulled to the left and right, which is really tricky. Photo. Ji Yu Heng Shuzun folded his hands and suddenly drank a drink. In a short time, a yellow light surged on the pair of copper rings, which actually stretched out like a rope. One of the copper rings was a magic sword that pierced Wu Zhenxian first, so that a copper ring was from Wu Zhenxian. Put it on your body, and then tightened sharply, binding Wu Zhenxian also. Wu Zhenxian's face changed, and she wanted to break free. However, this copper ring was like the 5 elements mountain suppressing sun monkey. Wu Zhenxian became larger and it became larger, Wu Zhenxian became smaller and it did not give her a chance to escape. Ha 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 ha, little maiden skin, let's get hold of it. This seat looks good to you. As long as you are willing to be a girl under this seat is worth your life, even if you are obedient. Taking down this universe, you can even ask the Lord God for a color, and it is not impossible to make you the master of the astral domain. Shu Gushuan laughed loudly, but there was no sympathy in his hands. On the copper ring that bound Wu Zhenxian to death, he sharply pierced a circle of short blades with the length of his fingers in order to hang Wu Zhenxian directly. Look for death. Wu Zhenxian heard the words, and suddenly a pair of beautiful eyes flickered with coldness, and the murderous intensity was extremely extreme. Supernatural power, change shape. Wu Wuxian spit out this sentence coldly. After the voice fell, I saw a flash of light flashing on her. Not far from her, a figure exactly like her suddenly appeared. Suddenly, Wu Zhenxian, who was bound by a copper ring, was completely hanged by the copper ring and turned into a shadow kill. Wu Wuxian's Yanqiao's face flashed pale for a moment, then took a deep breath, and once again raised the sword to kill Ji Yu Hengshuan. The other side of the battlefield. One has a 6-marked virtual honor with double wings on his back and a waist around his waist, and his knees are hanging down. Then, his hands twisted for a while, and turned into 2 narrow sharp swords. Dragon, I ate you. The 6-marked Shu Zun stepped on his feet and suddenly jumped, like a flying mantis, towards a 3-generation dragon clan. His hands, which turned into sharp knives, flashed a severe cold light in the air, enough to split the stars and the moon. Roar. The 3 generations of the purple dragon, who saw the whole body in purple, saw a panic in their eyes, opened their mouths, and spit out a star-sized purple venom. The battle between Invincible Supreme and 6-mark Void has become fiercer and fierce, and has entered a fevered state. Although no one has fallen, according to this situation, the Invincible Supreme on the side of the divine universe, the fall is only a matter of time. At that time, once the Invincible Supreme falls, the The balance of the top combat power between the two universes will be broken, and the virtual universe can free up its hands, creating a 2-to-1 situation. At that time, it will lay the ruin of the divine universe in one fell swoop. Draw full rotation, and put it back on Jian Wushuang and Gafu Supreme. A single spark can start a prairie fire. Jigvu took a deep breath, and there was a firmness in his eyes, and he muttered to himself, "Then my old body will be transformed into the fire of." His words fell, just as Gav Supreme planned to grab, burn himself, and become the first fire to burn up the void universe. His shoulder was suddenly patted by the sword Wushuang. "Okay." Gari GV turned back suspiciously. "Gaifu, what do you want to do? Younger people do not stop you, but before that, younger people want you to see something." Qi Jian Wushuang said softly. Immediately, Yu read the book www.ukanshu.com turned his right hand over, and an iron-colored token appeared in his hand. This token is exactly the sword Wushuang who was in the land of the gods. It was developed by the Taoist master of the Life Shrine, and was given to him. He looked at this rusted token first, and then he looked at those turbid eyes, and suddenly his eyes became red. 100,000 virtual times. I do know the life and death of the Lord of the Palace of Life. The world only knows that the Temple of Life was opened by Dao Yang Supreme, and then guarded by Gav Supreme. I do not know. At that time, Gaifu Supreme was the shadow behind Dao Yang Supreme, the most loyal old servant. Young Master. Alive. Gari Fu Supreme opening. His title is not the Palace Master, but the Young Master. Perhaps he has not called the word Young Master for a long time. Therefore, the two words appearing from his mouth seem a bit stiff. Yes. Wu Jian Wushuang nodded. I was sure of Jian Wushuang's determination, and Gafu Supreme laughed. The first laugh was free and easy, and the smile was relieved, and the smile was unrelated. Sword unparalleled, since the Young Master has given you the Palace Master token, then you are the second-generation Palace Master of my Life Shrine. I have no wish or regret. The words fell, Gav up to respect, raised his head, and looked at the battlefield of Invincible Supreme and 6 marks. A strong breath that has never been before, poured out from him. Chapter 45-56. Okay. What happened? This breath is. Suddenly, the 6-marked virtual inferiority and Invincible Supreme being engaged in the virtual universe stopped the battle in their hands and looked down in confusion. As a result, they saw Gavro, who was burning with the divine power. It's him. It's this guy. He is still alive. Some people who had participated in the last battle of the Holocaust and knew Supreme Gavar had a look of terror on their faces. At that time, Gav Extreme was still young, but it was one of the absolute main forces of the divine universe. Almost in this realm, there were few rivals. For this reason, the virtual universe side also sent a few 6-marked virtual princes to slay Gafu Supreme. They clearly remembered that Gafu Supreme was seriously injured and was dying at the time, and it was about to fall. Rewind. This lunatic intends to die with us. Suddenly, a 6-marked virtual Zun pupil shrank, as if aware of something, and shouted in horror. As soon as this remark was made, these 6-marked virtual respects suddenly changed their faces, and they all retreated back. And some Invincible Supremes of the Divine Power universe are also shocked, and their eyes are unbelievable. Gav this guy. The Emperor Taishu ended the battle, panting slightly, and looked at Gafu Supreme with complex eyes. His relationship with Supreme Gav was regarded as an enemy and friend. Before the outbreak of the Holocaust, the two had a lot of grudges, but with the outbreak of the Holocaust, the two became comrades in arms. Even on the battlefield, Supreme Gav had saved his life. As a result, his feelings for Supreme Gav were rather complicated. It is also because of this complexity that when Jian Wushuang almost killed the Bingyu Supreme, he only mentioned that he beat the sword Wushuang, and did not kill the killer instead, but left the universe with the Bingyu Supreme. Deep. Otherwise, relying on the strength of the Emperor Taishu, even if the sword was double-clicked and killed, the Life Shrine at the time had no way to take him. The sword is unparalleled. The old man has gone. After all, this world is your young man. She patted Jian Shou's shoulders, and Gav Supreme turned his head back and took a deep look at King Jojia. Then he didn't hesitate again, and stepped on his right foot again. The tail flames meteorite Mars, with an indomitable attitude, slammed into several six-marked virtual honors who were retreating. Teacher. King Jojia clenched his fists, arrogantly cold like him, and cold and ruthless like him. It was also at this moment that he felt a sore nose and a deep sense of weakness. It was Supreme Gap, who brought him back from a remote star field like a beggar, and gave him a home. The first practice, the first awakening of the perfect special level of life, the first breakthrough, and the first time called the Temple of Life, the first day of pride. All of this was given to him by Supreme Gavo. For him, perhaps it wasn't the billions of souls in the universe that really made him back in the water at this moment, not the people in the Temple of Life, but the look he wanted to see, the supreme governance approving him. This look, he finally saw. But there was only sadness in his heart, not joy. Boom. In countless all kinds of eyes, Gafu Supreme slammed into those six-marked virtual honors. With this collision, Gav Extreme broke through and returned to its peak. This collision was the strongest blow from Gav Supreme at the last moment of life. This collision is unstoppable, and it is dead. Do not. Guheng Shuzuan gave a panic and growled. Virtual explosion. The spider that is full of spiders all over the body at the same time used the strongest magical power to burst, and at the same time made countless tentacles, all exploded. There are more six-mark vanities, and they are doing their best. However, these are useless in the face of supreme governance, all useless. These magical powers only touched the skyfire flames transformed by the Supreme of Gav, and were instantly crushed and annihilated. They retreated, wanting to return to the void universe through the fissures of the void to avoid the blow. However, what made them desperate was that when they first wanted to enter the void and return to the void universe, they were shocked to find that the void crack leading to the void universe and the divine universe was closed for some reason. What's going on? Why is this happening? Crack in the void, what happened? Damn. Countless six-marked virtual respects have a blue complexion, watching the flames in their pupils become more and more magnificent. There is no escape. Avoid it. Even the void crack has been closed for no reason. Let them not think deeply. Laugh. The turbulent fire transformed into the supreme governance. All these six-marked virtual honors were swallowed up in an instant. In the light of fire, the despair roar of these six-marked vain lords, as well as horror and terror. This is the supreme gap, which burned life, and the blow from it was bright, gorgeous, and shocking at the same time. Boom. A moment later, it seemed like a huge firework burst into the air like a mighty starry sky. It's so huge, so beautiful. Countless people looked at this firework, all forgetting to breathe, their eyes were lost for a while. The fireworks gradually dissipated, and the governance was gone. At least 3 six-mark virtual honors disappeared with it. As if deleted by the world, there is no breath left in the void. That burned the sky and turned the whole body's life into a raging flame of anger, not only burned the six-marked venerable emptiness of the virtual universe, but also ignited himself. Gav Supreme, fallen. Countless people were stunned, as if being fixed, and looked at this scene stiffly, with only endless shock and admiration in their eyes. With one's own body, transforming into the sky of anger, breaking Lingxiao, stepping on Joyo, without remorse. Old friend. Bazoo ancestors have complex eyes and sighed softly. He once talked with Gafu Supreme in the East China Sea, and had a deep friendship with Gafu Supreme using the starless sky as a chessboard and the stars as chess pieces. Gov Supreme, respect. The martyr gourd fairy who asked Big Dream 3,000 years old, "What year is this evening?" took a deep breath, poured a glass of clear water from the gourd in his hand, and poured it into the stars. Sorry to know you this way. He didn't know Gawaf, but at this moment, he was convinced by Gawaf's courage and fearlessness. Teacher. King Jujia's face turned pale instantly. The whole portrait was drained, his legs were soft, and he almost fell from the air. The sword of the crowd in the crowd, although there was no speech, was like a heavy stone pressed against the chest, so heavy that the breathing became slow. Chapter 45-57. Divine Power Universe. 34 Schwanzuen have retreated to the edge of the extraterrestrial battlefield, and behind them, there is a crack in the void. However, the void cracks that had allowed them to go in and out were completely closed. There is no road behind and there is chasing in front. The blow from the burning life of Gavra Supreme directly reversed the situation. 34 virtual lords, who were originally implicated in each other, already had at least a few 6-mark virtual lords, and fell in the death blow of Gafu Supreme. And the remaining almost 30 vain honors, all with broken robes and embarrassing stature. They looked at each other, their faces were iron blue. "Master, what should we do now?" "A 6-mark vanity," Shen Sheng said. The naked white-haired burly old man didn't answer when he heard the words, but froze his eyes, staring at the ancestors of the Pa clan, his eyes full of fear. Gave Supreme's desperate blow, although he took away a few 6-marked virtual lords, including ancient Hung virtual lords and sky spider monsters, but this is not the worst news. The most sinking in the mind of the white-haired burly old man was the closing of the void crack. He just tried to communicate with the surviving people and horses of the virtual universe, but found that as the cracks closed, the communication between them was also interrupted. This means that they don't know what happened in the virtual universe. And, most importantly, they can't go back. The rules of the two universes, the virtual universe and the divine universe, are not interlinked, and even the things they practice are different. This means that they cannot recover the virtual force in the divine universe. Now the war between them and the divine universe has come to an end. It is when they are weakest that they cannot be replenished. The divine universe can slowly kill them here, even if they are grinded with water. Taking a deep breath, the right imaginary of the imaginary universe, that is, a flash of fruit in the eyes of the white-haired burly old man, said, "Contact the Lord of the Gods immediately, otherwise all of us will die here." After speaking, the right imaginary squeezed at the fingertips, forcing a drop of black blood and pressing it on his brows. Suddenly, Yoshusha seemed to have a sense of what happened. He immediately fell to his knees and kept talking about the words that summoned Lord Shushan. "Kill." On the other side, the patriarch's ancestors flashed in the eyes, and the word "kill" was coldly spit out in his mouth. When it turned into a rolling day, the right fist gathered thousands of winds and bombarded the 34 virtual respects of the virtual universe and go, and some other invincible supremes also offered various killing magical powers, followed closely. "Kill him while he is ill." Not only is the invincible supreme moving, at this moment, the ordinary supreme, led by Jian Wushuang, King Zhoujia and others, also has a flash of murder in his eyes. Jian Wushuang took the lead, the royal sword killed, and straddled the sky. Behind him, the King of 9 Dragons urged his talents to become supernatural, and the demon evolve. "Kill, kill, kill everything. You guys, bury the teacher." The King of 9 Kings had white hair, and at this moment, all turned into a glamorous red, and in his eyes, there were 2 rounds of blood moons. A violent and mad breath came out of him. "Okay." Jian Wushuang looked back at Zhu Jiewang, and his heart was startled. King 9 calm, enchanted. If the death of Supreme Gap is the one who has hit the most, then there is no doubt that it is the King of 9 calamities. In the heart of King 9 calves, the status of Gav Supreme is more important than his parents. He watched Gafu Supreme fall in front of him. At this moment, he was enchanted. Dead. A 5-marked vanity stopped in front of King Zhoujia. Before waiting for the 3-marked virtual respect to take action, King Zhoujia's big hand has been slammed on top of his head. He actually slaps his head directly into his chest, and then turns into a pool of meat sauce. "Go die. Come die. Go to hell." The King of 9 robbers danced wildly with both palms, and each palm shot directly killed an imaginary. On his skin, an ancient black divine pattern emerged, and his breath soared at a rate visible to the naked eye. Medium extreme peak. Medium extreme satisfaction. Supreme. Breakthrough. After the breakthrough, King Juke combat power is a leap in jump. The former King of 9 calamities was calm, proud, and indifferent. So now he has completely turned into a weapon on earth. The sea is raging, and his breath has not stopped, it is still skyrocketing. His practice rose madly at an unprecedented speed. No one is his one enemy, and within 100 miles of him, he has completely turned into Shura purgatory. In this scene, not only are the ordinary virtual lords of the virtual universe split apart, but even the supreme master of the divine universe feels his eyelids stunned. One king of 9 calamities, one sword without a match, these two people who came out of the palace of life are more perverted than one. An old-fashioned supreme tongue. Look at me, you only need to join forces with Zhen Wushuang and the king of Zhozai, and am afraid that these two people will be able to sweep the ordinary vanity of the entire virtual universe, right? Brilliant world, great world. Now the king of 9 calamities, am afraid it's not weaker than Zhen Wushuang too. These supremes lamented. On the other side, Zhen Wushuang just killed the Zhu Jie king once. Zhen Wushuang's killing is more direct and devastating than the 9 kings. He was like the scholar who traveled far and wide, and like the auspicious goddess who didn't touch the world's fireworks, his expression was so cold and stern. However, in his hands, the sharp sword energy cut by the Tai Luo divine sword is in all directions, rushing to the Xiaohan, madly harvesting the life of the virtual universe. Many weak esteemed virtuosos even only saw the action of sword Wushuang out of the sword. The Jinghong Yijian, like Bailong, has already killed it. Countless people looked at Zhen Wushuang, their hearts coincided with each other, and at the same time a word was flowing. One battle for 3,000 miles, one sword was once a million division. Who says uselessness is a scholar, and a scholar's sword is also king, just when the killing was at its most intense. The right messenger, who kept on telling Shu Zun, stopped talking. Soon. Boom tilde. The sky is cracking. An old man with white hair was the first to shoot out from the cracked sky. Master Elder God. Everyone's eyes are a little bit condensed. I saw the appearance of Zhu God as usual, but in his right sleeve cuff, it was obviously broken. Seeing this, everyone could not help but sink in their hearts. Immediately afterwards, they saw the imaginary shrouded in endless black mist, stepping down from the sky with their hands. He did not use any virtual force, but seemed to automatically lift him up as if heaven and earth were like the 9-day demon. Between the heavens and the earth, a tragedy is played for him. Shu Shen's red eyes only slightly shifted, and he saw the many virtual respects that were forced to a side, and the right Shu Xing who was kneeling on the ground, and said indifferently, useless waste. List of chapters with high-speed text. Chapter 45-58. In one lifetime, there are 3 autumns. Those who do something are called gentlemen. If you do nothing, you are a hero. The meaning of a hero is not to save a man born in water and fire, then he is called a hero. Heroes are the ones who dare to take the world by storm, knowing that there are tigers in the mountains, they prefer to travel to the mountains. Although there are thousands of people, I will go. Therefore, Gavro is enough to bear the name of a hero. With his own body, he started the epic beginning of this world of controversy and reversed the victory and defeat of the 2 universes. However, as the virtual stepped out of the crack in the sky, an immense force suddenly came to the audience, isolating the countless divine power of the universe, which was being killed. Master Xian Shen. Yoshu bowed to the ground with a guilty face, and he and Zhushusha were the 2 chief commanders of this battle. From the present, their command is undoubtedly unsuccessful. Useless waste. The false shook his head indifferently, then looked at the Jew, and his mouth made a low sound like a man and a woman. God of God, 100,000 virtual periods are missing. Your growth really disappoints me. The of Jew heard the words sinking and did not answer. The of virtual gods was born to devour all the negative emotions of the world's desire, greed, obsession, blood, resentment, and so on. Since 100,000 virtual times before, virtual gods have been seriously injured by him. Not only did his injuries recover, but his strength went one step further, and even the trouble he had dealt with became tricky. Shu Shen shook his head and said again, God, this knows the abacus you played, sends people into our virtual universe, and closes the void crack channel with Fengtian banner, right? With this remark, Zhen Wushuang could not help but shrink his pupils. He knows the existence of Feng Tianqi. Before waiting for the god of Zhu to speak, I saw the vision of the virtual turned again, one by one glanced over the faces of the Supreme Master of the Divine Universe, and finally his eyes fell on Jian Wushuang. If I'm not mistaken, this is the person who entered the virtual universe. Shu Shen extended his finger and pointed his fingertips at Sword Wushuang. Suddenly, his fingertips seemed to turn into a vortex, and countless black mist condensed at his fingertips, turning into a horrible black beam, and instantly hit the swordsman. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang's pupils dilated, and a big terror between life and death surged in his heart. He didn't expect that the Xingshen would suddenly attack him. This change happened too quickly, and it was so unexpected that under the black beam, Jian Wushuang was like the ants facing the collapse of Wuyue, unable to resist the slightest resistance. The gap between him and the virtual is too big. It's like a cowardly baby, facing a mythical giant with a height of billions of meters. Even if it is a breath, the virtual can kill the sword unparalleled. Just as Jian Wushuang clenched his fists, and a rush of madness resigned in his eyes, a deep cold humming suddenly sounded in the void. Immediately afterwards, they saw the figure of the Jew, who appeared in front of Jian Wushuang out of thin air. Shu Shen, it's too much to start with the junior, isn't it? The God of God calmly spoke, and at the same time he reached out his hand. Suddenly, the black beam of light was swept away by the of the sky and suddenly disappeared. Seeing nothing, there was no regret, but he shook his head indifferently. God of God, do you think that using the Fengtian banner to seal the void crack, can I do nothing? He smiled and said with a smile, an infinite number of dark mists suddenly appeared on the virtual god, mixed with things like a Rubik's cube, and quickly poured into the void crack. Seeing this Rubik's cube, the God of God suddenly changed his face slightly and frowned. The lock of the space-time channel? Shu Shen, did you make a deal with the Emperor? Shu Shen did not answer, but raised his head and closed his eyes, spread his hands to embrace the world. Open it, the lock of time and space. Boom tilde. Instantly, more and more black mist was rising from Shu Shen, until the end, the sky was covered by the sun, and it all swarmed into the void of the void. In this dark mist, horrible sound waves similar to the horrible grievances are constantly heard, making people sound numb. Boom boom. The muffled sounds continued to pass from the fissures of the void, followed by the breath of the void universe. That crack began to spread and crack at a rate that was visible to the naked eye, and the crack gradually became larger. It's like a giant. Open your eyes completely and wake up from your deep sleep. Feng Tianqi is loose. Jian Wushuang's face changed slightly. He could sense that the 99 Fengtian flags that had been deeply inserted into the void in the void of the void universe were constantly squeezed out by a strange force. It's like a nail deeply rooted in the ground, being severely pulled out. One side. On both sides. 3 sides. 99 Fengtian flags continued to emerge from the void. And the void crack leading to the 2 universes is still growing. The void universe is inside the void. The old man of the red Buddha and 8 desolates, who was anxious like an ant on a hot pot, had a gloomy face, and kept paced back and forth, I don't know what to do. Suddenly, the old man of the red Buddha smiled and said, Master Bakuang, look at it, the seal of the forbidden space is loosening. Okay. Ba Huang Shuzuan looked up, and noticed immediately that in the void, there were black flags of God pattern, manifesting from the void. Not only that, the 87 void cracks are also expanding at an alarming rate. It must be the means of Lord Xian Shen, divine power universe, extraterrestrial battlefield. The countless emptiness of the imaginary universe, watching the ever-expanding void cracks, felt the breath from the imaginary universe, the spirit suddenly refreshed, and his face showed joy. Master Xian Shen is so powerful. With the 99 Fengtian flag, he was pulled out of the void. Boom tilde. Suddenly, a blast exploded. The connection channel between the 2 universes is completely opened. That void crack had spread to about 1,000 feet, just like the monster's mouth, squatting quietly in the void. Even the wind from has come out of this crack. The divine power of the many extremes suddenly changed his face. Even the of the sky is sinking in his heart. Master Elder God, I petition to hang them immediately, or wait for them to return once they return to the virtual universe, and it must be the calamity of our magical universe. One of the 19 captains, Shushi Supreme, stepped out and said with a deep voice, "Yes, we can't let them go back. This is a rare opportunity to obliterate them. Once they wait for them to escape and stay back until the day when they come back, it will be the time when our divine universe is truly in danger." The gourd fairy wine lunatic also said with a cold expression, "It's late." The Jew shook his head when he heard the words, and sighed lightly. List of chapters with high-speed text. Chapter 45-59. He seems to be confirming the word of the universe. When the divine universe was eager to try, when it was about to gather all its powers to completely kill the virtual deities of the virtual universe, the virtual gods looked back and looked at the 30 virtual deities that were already in various shades of weakness. Lunghua said, "Let's go." After finishing speaking, Shushan's big sleeve rolled a roll, and the 36 marked virtual honors and hundreds of ordinary virtual honors were put into the sleeves, and then he stepped into the void crack. The imaginary universe came with an invincible posture, but ended with a wolf howl. However, none of the people in the divine universe have a sense of joy on their faces. This time the two universes faced each other. It seemed that the divine universe had won and ended with the defeat of the virtual universe. This is not the case, although this time of the battle, the virtual universe has fallen a few virtual honors, but it is not a matter of injury. You must know that the Divine Force universe has deployed various means for this battle, such as those hundreds of killing arrays, and for example the 99 Fengtian flags arranged by Jian Wushuang in the void. They are planning to make a big injury to the imaginary universe and even wipe it out. However, the reality is quite different from what they expected. Opportunity is fleeting. And this opportunity has passed for the divine universe. I do need to think about it. The next time the virtual universe makes a comeback again, when the offense comes, it must have been fully prepared. At that time, it will be the calamity of the magical universe. This day, obviously, it will not take long. Abominable. One invincible supreme, the void in front of him blasted a punch, and suddenly the void broke like a mirror, venting the depression in his heart. Other invincible supremes, although they do express their inner depression like this person, they all have a somber face, and their faces are not very good looking. Qi Jian Wushuang slammed the Tai Luo divine sword into a scabbard. If you do intervene, then everything they expected may have been achieved. With at least sword Wushuang can be sure, the ordinary vanity of the virtual universe will definitely be wiped out by the army, and no one will escape. And Shushan did not have the lock of space at that time provided by Devouring Organization, nor could it open the connection channel between the two universes. At least half of those 6 marked virtual lords were to be folded here. It's just a pity that countless calculations haven't been taken into account. This is a tumor. Okay, let's go back and prepare. Wu Ju took a deep breath and said with a deep voice, "He is the leader of the divine universe. Although he is a bit downcast about this battle, he knows that he cannot show it. Once he showed sorrow, the divine universe was really over. The divine power universe now seems tough, but in fact, all the rope is tied to the of the universe. It is good." Everyone nodded, followed behind the of the universe, and ran toward the base camp. The battlefield outside of the territory became quiet once again, leaving only a pile of stumps and broken arms, and countless divine power fluctuations, confirming the brutal battle just now. But over time, these traces of warfare will be silently devoured by the universe and repeated at the beginning. The universe never changes. It is like a ruthless and constantly running machine, watching the times changing silently, ebb and flow. Even if the people of the virtual universe come in, only the monks who live in the divine universe will disappear, not the divine universe. Back to base camp. I was responsible for some of the supreme garrisons in the camp. When I saw everyone, they looked serious and silent, and knew in their hearts that this battle was definitely not a good result. Therefore, they didn't ask anything, but they whispered a master of the god and stopped talking. "Okay." Wu Ju nodded to them, and then said, "Come to the hall and discuss the next plan." There was a hint of exhaustion in his voice. After I finished speaking, the of the universe stopped talking and walked towards the hall step by step alone. At this time, many people found out. Wu Jushan didn't know when. The straight waist that had been quite straight had already been stunned a little, and the back looked thin and lonely. Seeing this, everyone could not help but glance at each other, then sighed. The pressure of the gods of the universe is the biggest of them. He bears too much. Let's go. The grandpa ancestor took a deep breath, and then strode behind the Jew and headed towards the hall. I entered the hall, and everyone arched, "I'll wait. See Lord Elder God. This time, I won't talk about these red tapes." Wu Ju God waved his hand, and there was a touch of exhaustion in his eyes. After I finished speaking, the of the universe did not speak anymore, but looked towards the hall. Some positions have been vacated. One of the more advanced is the position of the leader of the 5th Team Zero Supreme. Empty there, the position is still there, but people can never come back. Zero Wood Supreme died in the hands of the first ancestor of the heavenly sacred place of the virtual universe. The 4th team captain, Jin Yang, said softly. Among the 9 team captains, he has the best relationship with Supreme Zero. The two were in the same era, but they were the two great arrogances of that era. Later, they entered the extraterritorial battlefield and fought side by side. It can be said that they are already the closest relatives in the world. Okay. Wu Jushan nodded his head and said, "Xiao Lan, you will go to the heroes list later and engrave the name of Zero Wood Supreme." "Yes, master." Lan Lan replied softly. Although she is a disciple of Ju God and has a high status, she also joined the battle. At the moment, she has a pale face, a weak breath, and suffered a minor injury in the battlefield. Did not let the negative sadness come out. God took a deep breath, forcibly lifted his spirit, regained his sharpness, swept from the faces of everyone, and said, "What are you waiting for next?" As soon as this remark was made, everyone looked at each other, and no one spoke. I have exhausted all the means to be used. At this level of war, ordinary conspiracy and trickery will no longer have any effect. Until a long time passed. The Pi ancestor, the white ape, just stood up from his seat, with a clear tone. Without him, soldiers come to cover the water and cover the earth, but death battle, dead war. After hearing the words, God of the Gods narrowed his eyes, and then nodded, revealing endless killings and determination. Yes, only war. Many others supremely heard the words, the eyes suddenly soared. It is true that at this time, all conspiracy and scheming to conquer the virtual universe are just jokes. They have only one way to go, and that is death fighting. I agree. Wu Wuxian spit out these 2 words coldly. Seconded. 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 Chapter 4560. For a moment, the entire hall of the cosmic god was filled with the voice of secondary advice, and the words of death battle rushed to Xiao Han, breaking Kyushu. Wu Ju God took a deep breath and looked at the supreme mansion, his head nodded slightly. As long as morale is still there, so many obstacles just wait. Break through your power and stay with you to the end. An invincible supreme, his eyes filled with warfare, he said. Yes, you can fight if you want, you can die at most. My monk, why not fight? When the yin and yang rebellion, stain the sky with my blood. The other invincible supremacy also spoke. He who can cultivate to this state, which is not the dragon and the phoenix among the people, the arbitrary existence. Zun's life and death have long been taken down by them. When they entered this extraterrestrial battlefield, their lives and deaths were ignored. Only the 3 dragon and phoenix and unicorn families, without a word, faced the eyes of the gods of the universe. In this regard, the of the universe can only pretend to turn a blind eye. Okay, everyone, then you can go back and prepare for 1 or 2, and wait for the war to begin. The bright light flickered in the eyes of the phantom god, and the deep voice opened. The people in this fictional universe are not injured, but the same is true of the divine power universe. You must pay close attention to time to keep yourself in a peak perfect state. Yes. Everyone dispersed, and the hall was quiet again. Yangju God's straight waistplate was loosened, and he sighed softly, no longer covering the tiredness between the eyebrows. With 100,000 perseverance in chaos, he is too tired and tired. He rubbed his eyebrows, and Lanju said to the side of Lan Lan, Xiao Lan, go to the depths of the universe for your teacher, and you will summon all invincible supremes in the depths of the universe to the extraterritorial battlefield. It is good. Tong Lan Lan didn't have any delay. After nodding his head, he walked out of the hall, released the cosmic boat, and blasted towards the depths of the universe. After Lan Lan left, there were only two gods in the whole hall, the of the sky and Lan Su. Tong Lan Su did not participate in the god war, but stayed at the base camp to control the overall situation for the gods of the universe. Master, if you transfer all the invincible supreme here, I am afraid that there is no invincible supreme suppression in the depths of the universe. There will inevitably be people who have the opportunity to take advantage of cholera. Tong Lan Su said with some concern. Wu Jushan frowned and glanced at Lan Su, and said, it's a very good way to do things in extraordinary times. It's time now. If this battle cannot be defended, the entire divine universe will be destroyed for this purpose. Where else can there be so much fear? After a long pause, the Jew continued to say, if anyone dares to make trouble at this time, if our battle is defeated, naturally we will not mention it again. If we win, the old man will go to the autumn to settle accounts. Yes, the disciples understand. Lan Su nodded a little back. Well, you can go down too, and let the teacher be alone. After the god waved his hand to let Lan Su back down, he first glanced down at the broken cuff of his right hand, then looked up at the sky. His eyes seemed to penetrate the roof of the hall, and looked at the starry sky of Wudi, sighed softly breathed. The most serious thing happened to him, because he was unable to suppress the virtual because of his battle with the virtual god. You have to get others up quickly. He converged his thoughts, and there was a flash of enlightenment in the eyes of Jew God. At the same time, deep in the sky, a black giant tortoise the size of a star field, constantly shuttled. Some star thieves robbed while on fire, and monks crossing the road, when they saw this giant tortoise, they were shocked in their eyes. They hurried away from it and did not dare to block the road. Here, is this special lady a turtle? This is bigger than a planet, walk around, there must be some old monster out. These monks and star thieves marveled. On the turtle's back, no one heard it. A girl was constantly screaming with excitement. Wow, wow, master, is this the depths of the universe? This is too beautiful. Wow, oh. This girl is not someone else. Naturally it is the naive who once had a relationship with Jian Wushuang in Nanchuan Xiandao. At this time, she followed the ancestor of Feng Tian to tour the entire universe, and finally reached the depths of the universe, which is also the most prosperous area of the universe. Wu Juji looked at the countless galaxies circling, countless galaxies swaying, and countless universes of shuttles in the universe. Her eyes glowed. Previously, in Nanchuan Xiandao, the starry sky she saw was only so big, and she thought that the starry sky was really so big. Until then, she discovered that the original cosmic starry sky was so bright and so gorgeous. The beauty she had never imagined. Calm. Boy. You calm down for your teacher. When the baby was yelling for a while, her head suddenly ate a brain collapse. She couldn't help covering her head, and grinning. Master, why are you hitting me? Wu Chuji opened her bright eyes and looked at Feng Tian's ancestor with a look of grievance. Don't give this teacher a wrong set. Wu Fengshan's ancestor glared at the naive with a beard, and immediately said disgustedly, a bright, anyway, as a teacher, I am also a big man with a head and a face in the universe. Your entire face has never seen the world, making it awkward for the teacher O. Qin Chi's O word sounded a long tone, and it seemed that the meaning of the O word was a little dazed. Master, no one greeted you along the way, respectfully. The young child murmured softly. What did you say? Feng Tian's ancestors heard the words, and they suddenly felt that they were out of breath, and snorted coldly. When I dominated the universe as a teacher, the depths of the universe were still chaotic. These little guys didn't know as teachers. It's normal. Wu Chuji heard the words and could not help but spit out his tongue. Well, I'm too lazy to tell you this. After a long pause, Feng Tian's ancestors' expression gradually became solemn, and Shen Sheng said, You son, I'm leaving for the teacher. Go. After hearing the words for a while, Chu Chuji immediately excited her eyes and smiled and nodded. Okay, when are we going? The old ancestor of Feng Feng took a deep breath and shook his head and said, "You son, not us, but me, leave alone. Go away." Wu Chuji heard the words froze, and her face looked confused. Since she was still in RR, she followed her ancestor Feng Tian unceasingly. She never thought that one day her master would leave her. I don't know why. Suddenly, she seemed to be drained from the whole body, her feet were light and heavy, as if stepping on a cloud, and as if a big stone was blocked on her chest, her breathing stopped. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.